disappointing episode if you're tuning in for Vinny of The Unusual Suspects. Vinny is not here today, but don't change the channel. We have a ton of great topics coming up for you. My name is Rob Gargiulo, and I am hosting today's episode of The Unusual Suspects. Joining me today, we have a full panel of regular unusuals. Everybody here has been on the podcast before. We'll go left to right. First, we have Amy. Then we have Connor from VT.com. You can read his articles over there. We have Brett the Hitman Hart here joining us today. Humberto, what is your title here? The
Supreme Leader of Distribution.
He knows.
Wow.
That is my leader.
Well,
Yes.
the brainwashing is strong with Humberto and
Yells it
Amy.
at least 4 times a day.
And finally, we have the person who oversees all of this nonsense. Your official title is Director of Studio Operations for Valuetainment, Robert O'Rourke.
Potential channel
Pleasure being
demonetizer,
here. Yeah.
Robert O'Rourke.
If you have not subscribed to the Unusual Suspects channel, do it right now. There should be a subscribe. There it is. Look at that. Subscribe, like, make sure you get notified the next time we're live. We're live every Wednesday and Friday for you at 6 p.m. and maybe some additional episodes coming up soon. By the way, if you would like to connect with any of our unusual suspects today, you can do so on Minect. I am on Minect. There is my QR code right there. It's me and Vivek Ramaswamy, the former presidential candidate for these United States of America. If you have any questions about podcasting, any questions about search engine optimization, or you just want to see photos of my feet, take a photo of the QR code, scan it today, and connect with me on Minect. Also on Minect, we have Humberto. Look at that.
Right here.
Do you wear the glasses when you do Minect calls?
As long as they pay, they do whatever they like.
Well,
you know?
okay. As long as you pay, he'll do whatever you like. I think that's called
Terms and conditions
OnlyFans.
apply.
I believe that's the model. Yeah.
Robert O'Rourke, Connor, and Amy also all on Minect, as is our fearless leader, Kellyanne Arnold. If you want to scroll over to Kelly's, you can see that's Kelly's QR code. Make sure you connect with Kelly. She can help you with production, live events. She literally is the glue that holds this together. So if you have any questions, connect with Kelly. We have a ton of great topics for you today. Connor is going to get into what Ron DeSantis has been up to since he left the campaign trail. How many months ago did he actually drop out of the presidential?
Believe it's been about 4 or 5.
Okay, so 4 months.
But in that short window of time, he's made a complete 180. Different guy now, somehow.
If you
And
remember,
it's
he
wonderful.
shot to stardom. Everybody was loving him. He came on our podcast. We gave him free boots and asked him why he wears lady high heels. And then all of a sudden he dropped out. It was
It was magic.
Yeah. So we'll get into some of Ron's wins since then. Also, Rob O'Rourke is going to be talking about the Black Knight Satellite, something I've read a lot about. Very interesting. Amy is going to be covering the Pi Kappa Phi fraternity members who I believe they're the ones that held the flag up as it was about to hit the ground.
Protected the flag.
Was that at North Carolina College, right?
Yeah, it was during some Gaza protests. Yeah.
Cool. And Humberto will also be talking about some of the protests that have been going on. Columbia, UCLA, we've all seen the images. But Humberto, what did you say? You're going to slow it down and explain it for everyone?
Explain what's going on, how's it different than BLM, and how can you fight it?
And finally, I'll be covering globesity and a potential cure for it. We'll discuss more. But first, let's go to Connor, and let's go to Governor Ron DeSantis and his fancy lady boots. Connor, what has the governor been up to since he dropped out of the presidential runnings?
Yeah, everybody. So I am here today to show a little bit of love to Ron DeSantis. Unfortunately, we all remember how things kind of went right after his campaign launch, starting with some technical hiccups during an X space with Elon Musk trying to launch the campaign.
Super embarrassing. I was one of the people trying to listen to it, and I kept going, is my internet dropping out? Why am I not able to listen to this? So the start of his campaign was a failure.
Yeah.
It was innovative and very cool, but a massive failure.
Did you guys see the meme that came out about it as well, where like they had like all these historical figures like Hitler and all these people that they put on this?
Yeah, but obviously it was well intended, but it was sort of a sign of things to come for his campaign. Big ideas, powerful people, very poor execution. Things at the beginning, he was actually neck and neck with Trump for a little while. Like it was kind of going back and forth of who was going to be the front runner. After a few weeks, Trump pulled away, and DeSantis fell down to be almost neck and neck with Nikki Haley in a race for third.
But did Ron ever have a chance? It feels like Trump's base is so dedicated and so loyal and now so massive that it doesn't feel like anybody in the Republican Party could have ever actually been a foreseeable.
Of course not. If anybody could have come close, it might very well have been DeSantis based on his momentum kind of coming out of COVID era and all the stuff he did in Florida. But unfortunately, the Trump train was unstoppable. As soon as that mugshot of him hit social media, it was over for everybody else.
I mean, the only other person that had as much press as Trump was Vivek. But he aligns very similar in his thinking as the president, or former president, I should say. So there was no chance that Vivek could get to that point where he debates Trump.
Showing how things were going in the Republican primary, Vivek Ramaswamy dropped out before Doug Burgum did. Yeah. So things were not good. Things were not good for our
By the way,
candidates.
Doug Burgum was at Mar-a-Lago this past weekend at a huge fundraiser for Trump. Yep. I mean, some of the names that were rumored to be there are massive names. Tim Scott, Doug Burgum. Well, okay, I can't say massive names and say Doug Burgum. But Doug Burgum was there. Vivek was there. A lot of heavyweights in the Republican Party showing up to Mar-a-Lago this past weekend.
Yeah, and basically everybody but Nikki Haley has kind of coalesced around Trump now to help push him over the finish line. There's VP talks for a lot of them. Basically, they're doing the same thing. Noem. Except Kristi Noem, who is a puppy killer. But now it's the same thing that happens in every primary. You drop out, you endorse the main guy, now they're all elbowing for positions in his future administration, potentially. But now that he's back home in Florida, DeSantis is now a different guy. And it's the same thing we always talked about on the show during the primary cycle of, on policy, this guy is a winner. This is the guy who should be leading things. If our Republican politicians were half as good as DeSantis is at policy, we'd be a very different country right now. We had the chance, he had the chance, but unfortunately he was surrounded by a bunch of people who undermined his marketing. His surrogates online all sucked. They're all super cringy. It was a bunch of anti-Trump people who wanted Trump with none of the downsides and tried to find that in DeSantis. But now that he's back home in Florida, and that's where we all live, we all directly benefit from him being governor. I just wanted to shout out a couple of the things he's been up to just in the last maybe 3-4 months. I have a quick list of things and some photos of what he's been up to, because he's been on an absolute tear, setting the standard for what reasonable, effective, conservative governing looks like. So just in the last couple months, he has implemented criminal penalties for squatting, which is a huge problem all over the country that nobody's doing anything about. He made it so if you own a property and there's someone squatting in it, you just get the cops to get them out. Simple as. Just recently, he declared that Satanism is not a religion and therefore can't have chaplains in public schools. Nice. No other leader seems to be willing to take on the Satanists for some reason. A bunch of cringy Reddit atheists who like to pretend to worship Satan. No one else will declare that's not a legitimate religion because they were trying to get chaplains in schools to talk to your kids about Satanism.
Awesome.
He's outlawed urban camping to crack down on the homelessness problem. He just a couple days.
That's what they call the homeless.
Yes,
urban campers.
camping.
That's so bad.
What do they call it when they're in San Francisco? Because that's not urban. That's city.
Yeah, that's just
city camping.
Those are just residents.
Glamping.
Yeah,
that looks glamorous.
All the urban campers were moved to a different campsite when Xi Jinping showed up, but that's neither here nor there. Just a couple days ago, DeSantis outright banned any attempt to bring refugees from Gaza and resettle them in Florida, because the Biden administration is considering doing that. They want to take a bunch of Gazans who already have connections to the U.S. and just relocate them here and all right, you guys are granted refugee status now.
Not all of those people are chanting death to America, but we've seen videos of people in Gaza chanting that, and Biden wants to bring them here and allow them refugee status in America.
He said dead on arrival in Florida, that's not going to happen. Okay. He opposed a rewrite to Title IX legislation that was going to allow men and women's sports. That's not happening in Florida. He implemented harsher penalties for grooming and child sexual offenses, a thing very few people are doing. They called him a monster for, oh, look, he's implementing the death penalty. This is going to be used to crack down on gay people. Well, if you're a gay person who touches kids, maybe. If you're not, then this doesn't affect you. He cracked down on porch piracy and retail theft by implementing harsher penalties for that. No one else is doing it. He banned DEI from teacher prep courses so that now we cannot educate teachers in divisive diversity politics. Just like 2-3 days ago, he made it so you can file a complaint with the executive agencies if you're debanked for political reasons, which is a huge problem where banks are dropping people associated with certain conservative groups. 2 days ago, a few days ago, banned lab-grown beef and other meat products, which I don't know if you guys are familiar with how this works. It's a meat alternative where they take cells from a living animal, put it into a vat, and feed it amino acids and nutrients until it grows into a giant sheet that they then harvest and form into something that looks like a meat product.
Yum.
It's
So
disgusting.
fake meat.
Yes, it's fake meat. And he banned
meat.
it. Exactly. You are fake meat. Florida is now one of 4 states that has banned lab-grown beef. But when he stood up and presented the legislation, it's actually in one of the pictures that we just showed in that collage there. It's Save Our Beef. You can see up in the top left. Does that logo look familiar to you right there?
The World Economic Forum.
Because not only was he pitching it as a defense of Florida's ranchers who are, going to be driven out of business if fake meat takes off, but he also said it's a pushback against the global elite and the World Economic Forum who want us to eat bugs and fake meat. He said all that globalist stuff is dead on arrival. Excuse me. He's banned CBDCs. He's prevented the Chinese Communist Party from buying land in Florida. And just recently, as Haiti has collapsed into gang warfare, essentially becoming even more of an anarchist state than it already was.
Failed state.
It's not even a country anymore. It's just a gang hideout like it used to be back during the pirate times. He authorized the National Guard and the Florida Fish and Wildlife Commission, a bunch of other law enforcement groups to crack down on that and interdict boats coming over from Haiti. We have a picture of that as well. They captured this boat not too long ago, just off the coast, with apparently 30 Haitian migrants hiding out underneath it. These were human traffickers trying to smuggle people in. They got 30 of them there. I believe there was also weapons and drugs found on there.
Expensive boat.
Yeah, nice
that is
boat,
not.
though.
Now
Usually, when you see them coming from like Cuba, it's like some Gatorade bottles
the
wrapped in
wrap.
duct tape.
Yeah.
And they float over. But that is like
They have a Yeti in the back. There.
This is a very, very high quality operation here of trying to smuggle people there. They got 30 of them. There was actually 35 on board when they left Port-au-Prince, but they got hungry on the way over. So all the rest of them were gone.
Barbecue?
Yeah. So those are a few things that DeSantis has been up to. That's just in like the last 3 to 4 months. This is the example of what conservative leadership looks like and what we should be doing. Because at a national level, we talked about on the last episode, the Republicans just got together and passed the Anti-Semitism Awareness Act. Seems to be the only thing that our government can agree on is that we need to be doing more to defend Israel and cracking down on free speech if it affects groups we would rather see protected. But we need more of this. We need more people who are not afraid to wield the authority of the government correctly and effectively. Because basically, anytime you put a Republican in power, like, I want power taken away from the government and given back to the people. I want, decrease the size of government. We shouldn't be able to do anything. We should basically just run the post office and maybe the military.
Good.
But when we have government power that is used correctly, we see the benefits of it. There's a reason why everybody's moving to Florida, and all you idiot out-of-towners who are driving up the price of housing to the point where we can't get out of apartments.
Well, I appreciate that
whatever.
because my house has gone up $60,000. And
Yeah.
I was like, wow. I went and I looked the other day. I went, well, thank you, Ron DeSantis,
Yeah.
and all the people from New York still fleeing those states to come to Florida.
If you are if you're a homeowner here, it's a great time to sell
Yeah.
and move out of the state. If you're like me, who's not trying to leave the state but would like to stop renting an apartment sometime,
Good luck.
good luck to all of us.
Are we done praising him?
Yes.
Okay, good. Look, look. I mean, he's probably one of the greatest governors of all time. Better than Jeb Bush, better than Bill Clinton, probably better than Schwarzenegger, even though he's cooler. For the first time, because we did an episode on the presidential debate, remember? For the first time in human history, and this is not to put you down, Rob, a comedian was urgently needed. Unless he becomes funny, like if you see Ronald Reagan, he was hilarious. You can go online, search for his jokes. Hilarious guy, super funny. Ron DeSantis is not funny. Like, if I was his campaign leader, I would have got him, like, the best comedian. I would have gone Tim Dillon, Rob right here.
Vincent O'Shana.
To make him funny. Like, you cannot be the president of the United States if you're not funny at all. Like, for example, he had a chance, and he should have taken it. When we did the interview here, he was given boots. If you can't take that joke, how are you going to deal with Hamas? How are you going to deal with the communists? How are you going to deal with the Haitians and barbecue and this and that? Like, there's nothing that can take power away from you, like something that you're sensitive about. So he should have taken the boots, taken his shoes off, put them on camera, and bam, it's done. And we forget about it. But he never took that joke. And we all know that you can't be, like, 5'11" doesn't exist. I don't know anyone that is 5'11".
I'm 5'11".
You're 5'11".
So
You're not
am I.
5'11".
What do you
You're
mean
not
it
5'11".
doesn't
Bob and I are
exist?
exactly
It's
the same
the one
height.
before 6 foot. What are you
No,
talking
it doesn't
about?
exist. You're either 6 foot or lower.
5'10".
5'11"
You're either
is a
6
lie.
foot or you are a woman.
Yeah,
There's no in between.
5'11" is a lie. Nobody can be 5'11".
But wait, so did he react poorly? Because this is before my time
Yeah.
at Valuetainment.
He just
How
went,
did
oh, okay.
He
Like, thank you.
I can't take those.
Yeah,
for
in his
campaign
defense, what he said was, "I
contributions.
can't accept gifts," which is true, but it could have at least been. We were trying to give him the opening, I believe is what Patrick was doing, of like, okay, there's all these jokes about you with the boots. Just, I don't know, take your shoes off and confirm how tall you are.
Yes,
like
and,
that
the,
kind
and
of
the
thing.
lead up to it was literally the days leading up to that interview was where he had been seen at one of the debates wearing what looked like lady boots, and it was all over the internet. So to have a guest of that magnitude who everybody is talking about wearing ladies' shoes, how could you not bring that up?
And
so Pat brought it up.
I'll be honest, I'm not convinced that he was wearing lifts because I saw him at another debate wearing the boots, but he was rotating his foot in a way that would have been impossible unless his foot was snapped in half in the middle of the shoe. Because that's the point. Everybody was looking at the shoes after that.
I know.
So
We're
just
still
sort of-
talking about it right now.
We're still talking about it. He's not even running for president anymore.
But and he also, first of all, he's not a cowboy. Right? Like,
Yeah.
no offense to him. Like when George H.W. Bush wore cowboy boots and Wrangler jeans and went to the ranch, I got that. Born and raised in Texas. This dude's born in Dunedin, which is right outside of Tampa. I don't know if you're familiar. It's not exactly the cattle ranches of New Mexico. It's the beach. So when he's waddling around pretending to be a cowboy wearing his cowboy boots, it struck me as odd. And you had mentioned funny and comedic and something that he lacked because he was dry. Take a look. This is a clip from Ronald Reagan. After he was, there was an assassination attempt on his life. It was not successful. He's giving a speech, and during the speech, a balloon pops. And listen to his response and how quick Ronald Reagan was. Kelly, please play the video.
By its very existence and character, Berlin remains the most compelling argument for an open world. We're reminded of the many traditions of openness and democracy that have marked the history of this city. America missed me.
That is what America loves.
You know, Trump, after who did the bid after killing Abu...
Shane Gillis did the whole thing about after we took out al-Baghdadi.
Yeah, he
But-
died like a dog. But you have to be funny. You have to be funny. What I would have done, because he could have killed two birds with one stone. There's a conspiracy theory going around in the chat that everyone in the PVD podcast has no legs. So this is what I would do.
What?
I would have taken my feet, put it on top of the table with campaign socks, put the boots on, and then you kill two birds with one stone.
Mm-hmm.
You never heard this conspiracy theory? Nobody has ever seen Pat's legs.
Oh, wow.
The only thing I'll say on this is if DeSantis is going to be done in 2026, that's when his governorship's over. If I had to pick a job for Ron to do, I would say he would be a fantastic Speaker of the House because that's where all the legislation comes through. I would love to have him be the one that's writing the bills or what gets up on the docket next. And we have some bangers, I think.
But in order to be the Speaker of the House, do you have to be an elected member of Congress for the Senate?
Technically, no.
Technically, no.
Because we found this out during all the stuff with Kevin McCarthy, where nowhere in the legislation establishing who gets to be Speaker of the House does it say you have to be an active member. It's just traditionally only been that way. That's why they were thinking like, well, let's nominate Donald Trump.
Yeah.
They sort of consider like, what if we bring him in? Maybe he could be a great Speaker of the House.
remember hearing
until
that.
he becomes president, and then we find somebody else. Now, obviously, it would be a huge step away from tradition,
Huge.
and we'd have to figure out like
they
Rob, codify it immediately.
I was also thinking about his career to the future because I think he's freaking awesome. He's the best governor ever. Like, I love living in Florida. I love everything that he's doing. Like, I can make fun of him, whatever, but he's one of my favorite politicians of all time. But you know where I would put him? I would put him as a Kissinger figure.
Yeah.
He will make an awesome,
So he'll murder innocent civilians across the globe?
advocate for the takeover of sovereign countries.
But the
He'll
one
get
that
him with
makes
the
the calls
Rockefellers,
and the
kill us
decisions
all.
in the back rooms, he will be awesome because he has a big brain and he can read good.
Yeah, well, you look at the role.
Can read good.
You look at the role Vivek Ramaswamy has stepped into now that he's also suspended his campaign. You don't see a lot from Vivek anymore. He's kind of going around. But he's not like heavily involved in Trump's campaign. But Trump comes out with all these talking points. Like, for example, maybe a couple months ago, he's talking about how we're never going to allow CBDCs in the United States. We're gonna stop it. Trump didn't know what a CBDC was before Vivek suspended his campaign and joined his.
Correct.
Trump probably found out what a CBDC is, centrally banked digital currency, 5 minutes before he made that speech, where he walked out. Vivek whispered, "Okay, so you got to talk about these things. They're called CBDCs. They're really bad. It's a globalist. Just go out and say it, and everyone's going to love you." He goes out and says it, and sure enough, everybody loves it. DeSantis kind of needs the same role, and I know he's considered a VP contender, as is Vivek. I don't think either one of them is likely to fill that role because they're too big of a personality, potentially challenging Trump. But I think both of them have promising futures in Republican politics. But in the meantime, what we need is people like DeSantis, even at the state level, who we can't continue in the country with just one guy like him. Every red state governor needs to be doing that. During COVID, Greg Abbott would basically just do whatever DeSantis did 2 weeks later. And that's why Texas was also considered good on COVID. But Abbott's kind of moved away from that now and is, doing some things okay with border, but a lot of other stuff that kind of sucks.
Well, but when it comes to the border, they have now Texas is the least amount of crossings daily as opposed to Arizona and now California, which are seeing upticks. So at least he's doing something.
Exactly. And
but to your point about DeSantis, the whole reason all of us are here, we all live in the state of Florida. I've lived here for 10 years before. I mean, I was living here when DeSantis went up against Gillum, and thank God that drug addict mess didn't win. Did you see what the photos of that guy passed out with pill bottles all over? And he lost. Imagine if he won. How hard that guy would have
Remember, he
won.
didn't lose once. He lost twice because they counted that whole election 2 times. But as they say, you can't spell Gillum without 2 L's, so it makes sense.
Yeah. I do.
Think about that one.
I do love what Ron does. I feel safe in Florida. My family feels safe. There's a reason why people continue to flee to the state because it is one of the few states that seems to remain free in the union and where you are actually going to be, as shocking as this sounds, if you commit a crime, you will be punished. How odd is that to hear? But that is what will happen if you do that shit in Florida.
It's law enforcement. It's stopping globalist policies, and it's stopping the encroachment of the federal government into the rights of average human beings who are just trying to live as everyone in the country should.
And he's also cracking down on aliens. And speaking of aliens, not the illegal variety, not the ones from out of town.
Illegal. They don't have permission.
Yeah, but these these aliens are from out of the universe. Rob O'Rourke, Director of Operations here at Valuetainment, he's going to tell us about the Black Knight Satellite, which is super interesting if you've ever read about it.
I'm really going to increase my credibility as a sane head of operations here. So here we go. So yeah, speaking of aliens too, like comedy, you feel like might be lost on some aliens possibly. So Ron, are you really from here, buddy? We'll find out. So Black Knight Satellite. How many of you ever heard of it? Rob, I know you've heard of it. The
Black Knight from Monty Python, but not.
Okay.
Not this.
All right, we're gonna get a little weird here for a second, and let's
weirder
see
than we normally are.
Yeah, I think this is solid, like right in the mix where we should be. So there's a theory out there that there is a dark yet ancient satellite that has been orbiting the Earth for 13,000 years, and it's called the Black Knight Satellite. That's what they call it in particular. So what I'm going to run through here is I'm going to go through a bit of the history of it, and we'll discuss if we think this is a real thing or not. And shout out to the folks over at Y-Files. I originally got clued into this story from them. They do some great work over there, so shout out to them. So first is 1899. Nikola Tesla in his Colorado Springs laboratory received strange radio signals, initially thinking it originated from outer space, and figuring that, hey, I'm starting to see these radio signals come back, and it doesn't make sense. They're not coming from Earth anywhere. And Kel, I think you can see the picture of Tesla in his Colorado Springs laboratory there too as well. Fast forward a little bit, 1900s, Guillermo Marconi and Jorgen Hals also detected unusual signals. They were later identified as long-delayed echoes. Rob, you're in radio. You might have heard of LDEs, maybe not.
Very familiar.
Okay, so this is where you send out a signal on the radio, and it returns several seconds later after the transmission. And reports came in that all of a sudden they were starting to notice that when they looked at these signals, they were transmitting numbers, and strange numbers in a pattern. So May 14th, 1954, U.S. newspapers report that artificial satellites are orbiting the Earth and this is before the launch of Sputnik. Obviously, that doesn't make any sense. What's going on? What's been up there since, supposedly Sputnik is the first thing that's ever gone up. 1957, Soviet Union launches Sputnik, and then that technically is the official to go up in orbit. Then fast forward, 1958, Major Donald Keyhoe. By the way, too, the satellites, spy satellites that went up are called Keyhoe satellites. The U.S. government is tracking large objects orbiting the Earth. And this is a Defense Department document that is talking about the process in which they're tracking these. The Pentagon in 1960 acknowledges it's tracking a dark satellite, sparking concerns it could be the Russians, but they really don't know what the heck it is. 1960, New York Times reports on an unidentified satellite observed in polar orbit. Why am I highlighting polar orbit? It's not a technology we had at the time. Everything when you had a satellite up in the 60s is following the orbit of the Earth. It's following along with the direction that the Earth is spinning.
So this is going this way.
This is going this way, which also...
Hitting both poles.
Hitting both poles, and is the ideal orbit to track the entire planet. So if you're just following with Earth's synchronous orbit, you're not going to be able to see as much. But if you go pole to pole, you can see a heck of a lot more. And we didn't have the technology at the time. 1963, astronaut Gordon Cooper, who looks like a cutout of Captain America, reports seeing a green glowing object when he's up in space. And he also, the same ground stations were tracking the same thing. They were seeing what's called a prograde orbit, also something following him that was going in an orbit that didn't make any sense. And Gordon, I think it was the Mercury mission, he came back down, and the media was not allowed to ask him about the unidentified flying object or something that was following his spacecraft. Then we have researcher Duncan Lunar analyzes what those LDEs are that I talked about earlier. Pattern that points to, he was picking up on how these signals that were coming in had numbers. And when you put these numbers in the right sequence, they were pointing to a star map of the constellation Epsilon Boötes. I'm probably saying Boötes incorrectly, but indicating that there's a potential alien origin for this dark satellite.
When you say, so the numbers were coming in, and when you say put them in order, so literally like 0, 1, 2, 3.
Correct.
So coding.
Yes.
So they were coding the message that was sent, and then what that sent them to was some type of foreign
constellation.
Okay.
Yeah, a place where there's, technically you plug it into a star map, and it's like coordinates sending you to a particular place in the universe.
Okay.
And then from the numbers in the transmission, that's kind of where they got how the concept of, okay, this thing is not even from this universe, or this galaxy is probably the better, correct way to say, or solar system. It's technically within the galaxy. Then NASA's STS-88 mission photographs the unidentified object in orbit as well. And so you can see a picture of this. It's hard to see a little bit from this.
I've seen that a million
I highlighted
times.
it in red. It's just this weird looking object just sitting out in the middle nowhere, and the claims are that it's space junk. But as Mr. Gordon said earlier, he would notice something that was very similar to this following his spaceship, or the lunar module, anyways, when he was going up there. Lunar module, no, sorry, his Mercury spacecraft. Then 73, and I'm sorry this is going on, but this is important to know. There's a lot of information coming through here. Duncan Lunar publishes his findings that he suggests the Black Knight satellite has been orbiting the Earth for 13,000 years. The Defense Department in the 60s reported on silent satellite objects. The Endeavour shuttle saw it. Multiple shuttles have seen it when they've gone up. It's getting weirder and weirder and weirder. And despite numerous reports and theories, the scientific community is just blowing past it, saying, no, it's just space junk or a natural phenomena. And we've seen that accounts of ancient landings of aliens, of ancient space races coming from different areas all over the universe have been here for a long time. I'm going to play this video. This was just the first, maybe 30 seconds of this. This is where David Grush on Joe Rogan's podcast is saying, hey, at least the first stuff we've seen come across, we've been tracking, is the 30s that I'm allowed to talk about. But these ancient encounters have been here for a long time. Let's go ahead and play that video.
The Joe Rogan Experience.
This stuff is landing or crashing around the world, and unexpected countries have had this happen, and that's why I picked that, because I thought that was a interesting case. And then, of course, Pope Pius XII and the Vatican were involved, back-channeling it through the OSS, which became the CIA later, to FDR, and that's how the U.S. knew something weird happened in Italy right before World War II. But
so this is 33 was the first documented.
That is the earliest one I can talk about. Yeah.
Okay, stop it there.
Something
so
that
he's
fed. Sorry.
Definitely
Every time I've seen him, I go, there's something off about that guy. And the fact that there's no background info on him whatsoever on the internet. And believe me, we can find it. If there's info on somebody on the internet, we will track it down. And we couldn't find anything on this guy.
We'd love to get David Grush on the podcast, but nobody can get a hold of him.
Yeah.
And yet somehow he's public and out there before Congress and on Joe Rogan. But nobody else knows how to get a hold of him, apparently.
100% fed.
Yeah, he's definitely fed. But I would say this, that if you're at the level of security clearance that David Grush is, which is a top secret security clearance, compartmentalized, and he's worked for the NRO, National Reconnaissance Office, that is undoubtedly the intelligence agency within the United States that has the biggest budget. It crushes the budget of the NSA, crushes the budget.
And what is it called?
It's the National Reconnaissance Office.
How many of you guys have ever heard? I'm sure you haven't.
I have not. I have written reports for the website about alien stuff, and I have never come across that organization.
You're proving my point. Is that
and it has a bigger
how do
budget
you know?
That says a lot.
I've just seen a few things over the years.
Fed.
But so they have a bigger bigger budget than the defense, and that is the biggest budget for the United States' Department of Defense, correct?
Yeah. So the NRO, or the National Reconnaissance Office, handles all of the spy satellites. So for this guy, basically, is sitting at the correct spot within the government to be able to have access to unidentified aerial phenomena and be able to have the evidence and the background to say certain things are going on. Now, obviously, he only got clearance to talk about a few things. And obviously, if he has that high level of a clearance, his public persona is going to be scrubbed, on a massive level.
To bring it back to the Black Knight satellite.
Yes.
You mentioned that guy put out something saying it's been for 13,000 years. David Grush just said, the furthest I can go back is the 30s. When most people think about, alien encounters and all this weird stuff, I think, Rob, you're our alien guy. You're our alien expert for the most part. But when you go back and look at when people became aware of aliens and UFOs, and stuff, it's Roswell in the 40s. That's the first thing.
Well, if you date back all the way to
ancient Egypt,
yes,
of course, but that's
cave drawings.
Yeah, that's
of
far
UFOs.
more fringe and theoretical. But people everyone in the U.S. started seeing aliens after the Roswell incident in the 1940s. So where did this guy get the conclusion that it's been here for 13,000 years? How did he get to that number?
It was through his process of doing the research on the number sequences he was getting. He was also in the origin of what it would take for that to come here, and there's more to it. And for me to explain it would be like a kindergartner trying to explain, astrophysics. It's going to sound dumb on multiple levels. I think this guy was a pretty bright guy. If they're saying, okay, this in 13,000 years ago, what's going on then? That's the Younger Dryas. That's when we had some massive upheavals on the face of the earth, where all types of stuff was going on that Graham Hancock talks about, and how there were massive polar shifts and all this stuff going on. So he might have been bringing it back to something that was going on then.
I have a few questions about this.
Yes.
Is this man? I mean, alien or unaliened? Like, is there aliens inside of the thing?
No, there's no claim that there's anything living inside of it. It's just that there is.
Well, if they have the technology to get it here, why would they need somebody to be inside to run it? I would assume that they'd be able to run that remotely. If we have the ability to launch satellites and run them from here, imagine the ability and technological the technology that those civilizations have to send something here to monitor.
How disappointing! Our first content is going to be a Zoom call.
No, I think they're already here.
Well, and that's a point Tucker Carlson has made quite a few times, that like there's no alien encounters of like them arriving. It's like whatever the phenomenon of aliens are, they've always been here. Like, because 13,000 years ago,
it's like the Palestinians argument for Palestine. We've always been here. Then Israel came in and took over.
Exactly.
Same thing.
Space Jews.
Okay.
But when you go back 13,000 years, that's like the earliest parts of human civilization. Like the earliest traces of anything resembling modern man being in a civilized capacity. So if they've been up there observing the entire time, that's like they were here long before us.
Agreed.
So are we just the experiment that they've been watching to see how it plays out? Is
I have no idea.
Just some big alien experiment? Are we heading towards a conclusion to that experiment that doesn't look good? When you look at all of the conflicts that are going on, the escalation and talks of nuclear war, are we at the point where the aliens are watching this experiment, learning and going, look how wrong it's gone?
Yeah.
That's one possibility. The other possibility is that they're just further along in the timeline than us, that when we get to a certain, and we're already doing this now, but once you have the capacity to send out a satellite that can go into other, solar systems, other universes, stuff that can go far away, that's what we're gonna do. We're gonna send out, satellites to go monitor to see if there's. We'll go to all the Goldilocks, planets and look to see where there's life.
Think how long we've been pumping radio signals out into space. Basically, since we were able to put stuff up there, we've been sending signals, and it's music or whatever that we're playing. Eventually, somebody's just going to come out and say, "Hey, could you turn that down? Your music sucks."
Yep.
But
according to Tucker, you mentioned that they're already here. Tucker says that they're interdimensional beings,
which is actually more where I come down. Like I don't, but my religious convictions sort of inform my view on aliens. I don't necessarily think it's an advanced civilization just like us, but they just got really far ahead and then came here. It has more to do with like the phenomenon of angels and demons and aliens are the same thing. So when you go back and trace all through history, like they saw an angel or they saw an alien, like it's similar things, like more spiritual, higher dimension beings appearing on Earth through their ability to travel through dimensional space. But that's a whole other convoluted
That's more in
thing.
alignment with like the Christian kind of worldview.
I mean, if you read through the Bible, it's not going to tell you here's how to think about aliens, but it does have a standpoint of like humanity is kind of the center of God's creation. Like he didn't make a bunch of other things that are out there living just like us, because when one group sinned, it's not like, Space Christ went to every other planet to die for those aliens as well.
Space Jesus.
Space Jesus.
Space Jesus, yes.
Exactly. So it is more like, okay, humanity is the center of it, but there's a bunch of spiritual stuff happening that we aren't aware of that has a vested interest in what goes on Earth. So there's, good ones, evil ones, and they are all able to interact with the planet in the same way. When you
look at, and we'll wrap up on this, when you look at how technology has drastically improved. Like, I remember the very first computer that I had, it must have been early 92 or 93. it was Oregon Trail.
Yep.
You remember that game?
I love
It's the
Oregon
only
Trail.
game you could play,
Yep.
but literally it was like it was green and black, like the screen that I had. It was a big box computer. And now look at this. You can use this to, I don't know, download Minect and connect with your favorite experts at any time. Like the technology has advanced so quickly. It almost feels like when I look at this, there is some type of higher in different civilization that has different technology, and I feel like every once in a while they give us some of that technology to see what we do with it and what we turn it into. Because explain how in 20 years computers have gone from what they are to what they are today. I don't use a desktop computer. I use my phone. Look at printers. Printers used to be massive.
Yes.
You'd have to print out sheet by sheet and you have to pull the sides off. Now you can print on demand from here. I can print to the other building that we have 2 miles away.
Yep.
Technology is insane, and for us to be able to expedite it that quickly, it almost feels like there's otherworldly tech that we're using, that we're being given, that we're just testing out as we go.
And is the goal to keep you plugged into it for your entire life?
Oh, they've worked now because I'm screwed. I'm into it.
Even back then, when you were on your big box computer, the internet was a thing you accessed in a fixed location, and when you left the computer, you left the internet. Now you carry a device in your pocket
Plugged
that
in
has
at all times.
more computing power than the thing that landed us on the moon, allegedly.
Yes.
Yeah.
So
Allegedly.
look at what the progression is. Now you can get VR headsets to scroll TikTok, play an Xbox, and shop on Amazon at the same time.
Well, very interesting. If you want to read more, go look up the Black Knight satellite.
Black Knight satellite.
Let's move on to Amy. Amy is going to talk about the Pi Kappa Phi fraternity guys that were involved in the anti-Israel or what is it? Is it anti-Israel protest?
pro-America
or are
is
they
what it is.
Pro-Palestine? They're pro-Palestine.
Okay, so they're not technically anti-Israel, but they're pro-Palestine. There was a flag that was about to fall. Were they pulling the American flag down to replace it with the Palestinian flag?
Yeah, sorry.
And these guys stepped in.
Correct, yeah. So this story is so incredible. Definitely didn't have, fraternity brothers saving America on my bingo card, if I had to guess. And, in Australia, we don't actually have fraternities or sororities. So the caricature and the stereotype of frat guys in movies that we see in Australia, like they're always portrayed as like so stupid, so dumb. They're like these caricatures and ridiculous portrayal of stereotypes, but I think this story is really inspiring. I think it's an immense display of bravery, patriotism, and really this is what America is all about. And so obviously, as you guys know, Humberto is going to be touching on it as well. There are a lot of pro-Palestinian protests that are running rampant across various different college campuses around the USA. In particular, this was at the University of North Carolina, Chapel Hill. And real quick shout out to Connor for the story as well. He has an article of this up on VT.com. That's what I'm going to be referring to.
Thank you, Amy.
Of course. So a group of fraternity brothers at the University of North Carolina, Chapel Hill, rallied to defend an American flag from a mob of pro-Palestinian protesters on Tuesday, defending the national colors through an onslaught of demonstrators bombarding them with rocks, bottles, and profanities. And so essentially, we have been seeing a lot of American flags across various different college campuses being torn down, being burned. And these guys who are a part of this fraternity noticed that this had happened. They actually had a police escort who accompanied them to return the flag, to raise the American flag once more. And then just after the police left, the protesters came back in an attempt to rip it back down. And Kelly, if we can pull up the photo, this photo, I don't know about you guys, but if we could zoom out a little bit, it's this image in particular makes me so happy. It's not quite this one, but you can see one of the guys on the left-hand side. He's literally smirking through all of it. There's water flying everywhere. You can see people. This is the one. Look at the guy in the blue. If we can punch in on his face. Look at him. He's so happy with himself.
Absolute Chad.
That's the Nick Sandman face. You remember
the guy with the Indian chief?
That group of leftist protesters that went after the Covington Catholic school kids.
Yes.
That one guy who was just
Yeah, and
He
now
had-
he's
he had a
smirking all the
smiling
way to the
face.
bank because he sued like CNN, all of them. For
It was what the
money.
media described as a very punchable face, and now that kid's a multimillionaire.
Well, there you go. Yeah, I just think that this picture is so iconic. People were screaming at them, they were throwing things at them, and amongst it all, I'm not sure if that's actually in this little thread here, but the guys just start singing the American national anthem. Completely tone deaf. It sounded horrible, but you could feel it. You could feel their passion. You could feel their, conviction and their patriotism and their pride in being American. I just think this is such a great story.
There is nothing. Hearing the national anthem when it is sung the right way.
Yep.
It's so weird. It gives you goosebumps.
Yeah, it does.
I went to a Dolphins game and they brought out a female singer. I forget her name. And just like when she hit those high notes, it's like you get goosebumps all over your body.
People cry.
It is. It's a beautiful moment. So, but unfortunately, these guys didn't sing it in what you said.
But they
But
sang
they
it the
did
right
sing it.
It was the right context, which is the
Even
American
more
flag
chilling.
under fire, which is what the song, the poem it was based on, was written about. It was I believe the siege of Fort McHenry during the War of 1812. That's when Francis Scott Key wrote it, about the national colors flying above, rockets, red glare, bombs bursting in air, and all that. Like, the flag remains, it's strong. And the thing I wanted to point out, because a lot of the comments we got under this article when we posted it were about how, that these were actually Jewish fraternity members. And if you saw on the title slide that we ran with this, it actually does show one of the guys, he has an Israeli flag next to it. But I want to point this out here. It doesn't matter that these guys are pro-Israel in this particular context, because the protesters wanted to rip down the American flag and put up a Palestinian flag in its place. And just for the record, this flag was actually at half-mast already, because 4 police officers in Charlotte were just shot a few days ago.
Yep.
And this was, at half-mast in commemoration of them. So it's like doubly insulting that they wanted to do this. So these frat bros come along and see they have the Israeli flag right there. But they didn't attempt to run up the Israeli flag on the pole. That's there as a counter to the pro-Palestine people, because the Israel-Palestine conflict is what's going on right now. But they weren't rallying in defense of the Israeli flag. It was the United States flag, because that is the one that represents the country where they are. So that is what the idea of America should be. It doesn't matter if you're from Palestine, from Israel. Neither one of those flags should trump the American flag, which is what represents so much of what we're supposed to stand for.
Yes.
And when you have people who want to tear it down, it doesn't matter if you're gay, straight, black, white, Jewish, Palestinian. Anyone who says, no, this is my flag, what it stands for is my country, and I love my country, and put that before all the other ones, that's why it's significant. And I think that's why so many people like us are responding well to it, because you don't see that anymore.
100%. Yeah, he even said it in this Twitter thread, that it upset him that his country's flag was disrespected in order to advocate for another. So we're going to read through this thread really quickly. I've read it a bunch of times. I think this is just, again, so incredible. So this is from Guillermo, and he says, today was a sad yet empowering day at Chapel Hill. When I walked to class, I saw the Palestinian flag raised on our quad flagpole and was immediately upset that the protesters, at the act these protesters have made. I cannot say that I'm fully educated on the Israel-Palestine conflict, but it upset me that my country's flag was disrespected in order to advocate for another. Shortly after, Chancellor Roberts came with police officers to hang the flag once again. They were met with profanity, middle fingers, thrown bottles, rocks, water. When the flag was raised once again, the Greek community began singing the national anthem. As the chancellor left, the quad erupted into chaos as protesters began removing the flag once again, preparing to destroy it. My fraternity brother and others ran over to hold it up in order for it to not touch the ground. People began throwing bottles of water at us, rocks, sticks, calling us profane names. We stood for an hour defending the flag. So many fought to protect. My parents started a new life in the United States, a country that has helped them flourish and raise 2 kids. I grew up in a military community and saw firsthand the sacrifices they made. I will not stand for the disrespect from these protesters for the sake of another country. My LDoc will be memorable in knowing that my fraternity brothers and others fought to keep the flag up, but it was also memorable in knowing that so many yearn to disrespect it.
Can I jump in?
Sure.
Okay. this is what they're afraid of, okay? Because we let the disrespect run rampant all the time. But, for example, fraternities, the military, they have one thing in common, that you enter them through struggle. Like there's hazing, there's boot camp. And when you have a bunch of guys that been through struggle together, they have this bond that you cannot break. Like you probably still have friends from the frat. You still have friends at the, with the feds. But what
I like that you paused. With
but what I'm saying, that these are the guys that are going to put a stop to this, okay? Once you, sorry, but we're not going to get flagged. Once you fuck around enough, you're going to find out. Yep. Once you get these guys, like normal, normal is offensive now. Well, like average is offensive now. Well, this type of guy, pissed off enough to go there and get beaten and get thrown rocks at, for that flag to not touch the floor. And it's so sad. That flag was put up there with the blood and sacrifice of like thousands of Americans. And then it was raised to the middle. It was half-mast for the sacrifice of another force of Americans. And these guys have the goal to come with their stupid Palestinian flag that is not even a country. Like I'm going to say, it's not even a country anymore. Actually, Palestine was named by the Romans. Okay? And I'm not picking sides because I'm not playing this game. And the guy that is not educated, he apologized for not being educated on the thing. He should not be educated on the thing. This is America. Okay, this is America.
And the other thing, Guillermo Estrada, he said his parents are from another country. They came here and started a life. And Humberto, just like you.
Just like me.
Yeah. Immigrants who come to the country and embrace what it stands for and love the place they live. Yeah. And they want to put that first. So these guys flying the flag like, some sort of modern day Iwo Jima in, J. Crew t-shirts and stuff. They're capturing something that the country has in large part lost. And that's, I think, why people are rallying to it.
Yes.
As I mentioned in the article I wrote and Amy alluded to earlier, a bunch of people started a GoFundMe to we're going to throw them a kegger. We want to give them the best frat party ever. Oh, Kelly, do we have a live look at where the GoFundMe page is?
It's
been
incredible.
About 3 days.
Yeah,
since
when Connor initially wrote this article, I think the fundraiser, I think the goal was initially just like $15,000. By the time Connor had written the article, how many days ago? 3?
Yeah, I believe I put that out on Wednesday.
Okay, so they had raised $100,000 in just 7 hours, okay? And now I'm not sure if we're able to pull that up on the screen and see the live count. But
if we're not, we
can tell you guys.
We got it. Okay, so what it is right now, where this fundraiser currently stands, as we're pulling it up, we looked right before the episode started. $512,000.
There we go.
And I think at the end of this article that Amy has printed up, I did the calculations. The guy who started it, he wanted to buy him a keg of Natty Ice, natural ice beer. It's a terrible beer.
It's the best beer. It's the best beer if you have friends.
So I did the calculations when it was at I believe like 300,000 maybe, or maybe a little less, of how much a 12-pack of Natty Ice goes for, multiplied out, it's like 172,000 cans of beer that they could buy with this.
It's incredible. Yeah. I just want to read the caption to this GoFundMe. So commie losers across the country have invaded college campuses to make dumb demands of the weak university administrators. But amidst the chaos, the screaming and anti-Semitism, the hatred of faith and flag, stood a platoon of American heroes armored in vineyard vines and Patagonia, fueled by Zen and White Claws. These triumphant bohemians protected Old Glory from the unwashed Marxist horde, laughing at their shrieks and wailing and shielding the stars and stripes from Soviet missiles. I love it.
Well, for all the shit that people talk about Gen Z and millennials, I mean, these guys are what? Technically millennials if you're in college right now?
I mean,
no, you could. Gen Z is 1997, so there could be some guys in college right now.
I was born in 97, technically Gen Z, much to my shame. But
to your shame, I mean, look, sometimes they get a bad rap because they're the TikTok generation and they don't pay attention to current issues and they just get involved in social issues as opposed to political ones. But then you look at these guys, there was nothing social about this issue. It's all political. It's about the United States of American patriotism. And these guys are, I mean, first of all, I guess because they're military kids, they know not to let the flag touch the ground at their age. I had no idea that you weren't supposed to do that.
When normal people get organized,
Well,
we're going to be all right.
And I think that's what you're starting to see is that, hey, hope isn't lost, because look at these kids that are 20 years younger than some of us that are stepping up and doing things that we today are not doing ourselves. So props to them. I know we're going to continue this conversation with the protests at Columbia and UCLA. Humberto, you were going to break down the Israel-Palestine protests and conflict for us. Go ahead.
Excellent. So what are these protests really about? Those kids, they're amazing. You know, I want to go to that party, but I don't want to go to this party right here. If we can go on to the first slide. So we've been having these articles written by Shane that is not Connor on our website.
Other Connor is what we call him.
Other Connor.
And we call him Other Shane. It's very odd.
We're one person. It doesn't really matter.
So basically, we had protests breaking out across the whole country, mostly universities, colleges, places of higher learning and higher stupidity. Like, that's what it is. And this, like, I never seen Pat this angry. Like, in this video that you played in the PVD podcast really got to him. You guys can check out our VT main channel. We clipped this clip. He was aggravated by how much money they're wasting, how much time they're wasting. And this is just funny. Like, if we can play a few seconds.
And before you get to the video, Humberto, I just want to point out, if we can put it up without playing it, just to set the scene here. And dang it, our little video window cuts it off. Okay, perfect.
Great job.
Do you see the guy in the back who is not talking?
How dare you assume his gender? Do you have a shadow and beard?
Looks like
Do
a
you see lady, sir?
Do you see the they them in the background in a crop top and a Muslim scarf, trying to stand there and protest? These guys took a break from their. They're missing their final exam for post-colonial lesbian dance therapy in order to come do this protest for us.
Connor, I grew up in the Middle East. If we made a GoFundMe and buy them tickets, one-way tickets there, they will, for the first time in human history, they will run out of stones. They will run out of. You will have to.
What do we beat them with now?
You will have to. You will have to import stones. Like, they will have to reuse stones to throw at them.
And that feels disrespectful. Okay, we stoned one guy with this rock, but we ran out, so we got to go get it and then throw it back at you.
I know, rock recycling. That's what you're gonna get. So I didn't even want to play the video, but this lady right here, Malik, if you want to go ahead, she's asking for humanitarian aid for them. In America.
Well, first of all, we're saying that they're obligated to provide food to students who pay for a meal plan here.
But you mentioned that there was a request that food and water be brought in, unless I misunderstood.
To allow it to be brought in. I mean, well, I guess it's ultimately a question of what kind of community and obligation Columbia feels it has to its students. Do you want students to die of dehydration and starvation or get severely ill?
They're dying of starvation. Her dorm is
no,
like
then you should
5 minutes walk away, and they're going to die of starvation.
And let's put in context where they are right now, because this was after a group of pro-Palestine protesters took over Hamilton Hall, which is an administrative building on the campus.
I'm not mistaken, they took hostages.
Yeah, they did have a few administrators who were afraid to leave their office because of the massive amount of people there. They smashed their way in with hammers through the windows and doors, then built furniture barricades. Other people stood arm in arm around to block them. And they're like, we will not leave this building until our demands are met.
What?
And
ceasefire? Yeah. Is someone going to go, hey, these guys are locked in the building. Ceasefire
Benjamin
immediately.
Netanyahu was like, oh, crap.
Columbia, Hamilton Hall has fallen.
We shouldn't be offensive. It's not Hamilton Hall anymore. They renamed it Hinds Hall after a Palestinian girl who was killed in an Israeli airstrike.
Forever?
That's a tragedy.
Like official. That's official.
No, that's what the protesters wrote on a banner.
They do that all the time.
Yeah. So it's
the peaceful protest.
Yeah, for people who are very against a colonialist state of Israel, they sure love to take things that don't belong to them and rename them and say we're not leaving. So, think on that for a bit.
Here's what. Okay, so Pat was pissed off about this on the PVD podcast. Yeah. You have no idea how much this pisses me off. I went to Columbia.
You went to Columbia?
I went to Columbia. Wow. And I literally spent so much time studying, working hard to be able to get into Columbia. And this is the shit. the students are going to represent Columbia's. There's literally Nobel laureates up the wazoo that have gone there and teach there currently. And this is the type of disrespect that they're showing America, right now. It is just unreal. And as somebody who's been there, and I dropped out, so I feel like I have a shot at being a billionaire because, I technically dropped out of an Ivy League school. But it kind of pisses me off that not only are they this young lady, I'm sure she worked super hard to get there as well, too. And her parents, I'm sure, made plenty of sacrifices to pay for it and get her piano lessons or lesbian lessons or something that she did before she got there. But my point to this is that there's just such a level of disrespect to the students that have worked hard, are trying to change the world, that live there. And this is the shit that the university is being known for right now.
I think
it's ruining the price of people's
I think
degrees.
that's the main problem. People trying to change the world. Let's keep the world as it is.
And not to put too fine a point on it, but I believe that last girl's name is Slutsky or something close to that. So make whatever jokes
you'd be mad
want
too.
out of that.
All right, guys, let me cook.
You'd be curious.
People are drawing conclusions, and they're like, "Oh, this is just like the BLM riots. They're setting the stage, so we have another massive protest. Maybe they're pushing the Patriots to have another January 6th." This is my favorite picture on the whole internet. Can we pull it up right now? This is actually a screenshot from the CNN broadcaster. But
mostly peaceful.
He's wearing a gas mask and goggles, but it's peaceful.
No. But listen, fiery, but mostly peaceful. This was actually there. Like, I double checked the video, and this was.
You guys have the same eyewear. You and the CNN.
I know. I'm always ready for a riot.
Oh, for tear gassing.
Yeah. So
I mean, apropos of nothing, there was at one point someone who said, "Show me where protests are supposed to be peaceful," but.
Okay, but
we
let me
won't
ask
bring
you a
that
question. Eric Adams comes out last week and said that there were paid agitators in the crowd that was making this a non-peaceful protest.
Well, you
and
look
you
at the
brought
people
up
who
Black Lives Matter. So is it a stretch for us to, there's a government official acknowledging that there are paid agitators in the crowd that are disrupting. So is it that much of a stretch if a Democratic New York City mayor is making that claim? Is it a stretch to say that there may have been paid agitators in the Black Lives Matters movement?
Rob, that's exactly where we're going, and I'm going to tell everyone right here what this is. Roll the tape. Communism. This is just communism. BLM, communism. This, communism. And, let's go to the next slide, because it is communism. By the way,
Russian national anthem.
Yeah,
that we're
but this is the ear grape version that has been bass boosted. Can we go to the next one?
The bass has been boosted on the Soviet Union anthem. Okay.
Language, when it comes to things, is everything. These people foreshadow. They write about things before they do it. What are they saying right now? That the Israeli is an apartheid. Why are they saying an apartheid? Because they have two objectives when it comes to this massive protest, mostly fiery, but kind of peaceful. Here, if they're talking about an apartheid, they're not looking for a martyr like they did with George Floyd. They're looking for a leader. Like, the left leadership is getting old. We have Bernie Sanders. We have Elizabeth Warren. We have Nancy Pelosi. We have Joe Biden. Their leadership is getting old, and they need a new generation of leadership. So what are they looking for? Let's go to the next. They're looking for a Marxist terrorist like Nelson Mandela, worst person in the planet. He was actually.
Tell us how you really feel.
No.
Heard a lot of things about Mandela. Never worst person in the world.
Yeah. Humberto says a lot of
Hitler worse, maybe, but okay.
Humberto says a lot of crazy stuff sometimes. We all acknowledge that. Even Humberto acknowledges that.
Good.
On this subject, he is not wrong. What we are seeing in South Africa right now, I don't know if you followed the farm murders. It's been going on basically since the 90s. Of these groups of people are going through, and it's a genocide, if you want to use that term, against the white inhabitants of South Africa, where now you will have bands of raiders go up to these farms. They're isolated out in the middle of nowhere, white farmers descended from the Dutch colonizers who came down there, and they will butcher and rape entire families and burn their property to the ground. And they're getting more and more sophisticated. They've now caught these guys with signal jammers set up in their backpacks, which high-tech military equipment to stop radio and phone transmissions from getting in and out of the farm so they can't call for help. So they will spend hours torturing the women and children, slit the throats of every person involved, kill all the animals, burn the crops, burn the house to the ground, loot everything and go. Because the whole point is to just take all the stuff from the white people. And
this is going on in South Africa. Yeah. This is going on in Chile.
Yeah. Nelson Mandela somehow manages to escape criticism for that. Like, oh no, he wanted peace. Like, he set up the Truth and Reconciliation Commission. The Truth and Reconciliation Commission was just doing that with law instead of bands of raiders.
Yeah.
And now that they're far enough away where they can avoid criticism of that, they just full rein to the raiders.
And that's a great, segue to why they're doing it in schools, why they're doing it in colleges. This guy right here, his name is
Antonio
Gramsci. He says socialism is precisely the religion that must overwhelm Christianity. By Christianity is a more general term, like Western capitalist society. In the new order, socialism will trump the first, capturing the culture via infiltration of schools, universities, churches, and the media by transforming the consciousness of society. So if we see the pictures, we have the guy reporting that it was fire but mostly peaceful. We have the schools being taken over. We have, I'm a Catholic.
Yeah.
And I don't think what's been going on in the Catholic Church for the last 100 years is just like a coincidence or a mistake. It's been infiltrated.
Yeah,
I agree. Completely. It's
Protestant
the same.
Church as well.
It's the same, like feminism. Actually, a lot of this started with feminism. Feminism was created by a woman called Kate Millay. I think it's how you say it in French or whatever. But she was a known communist and Marxist, and some of the original writings literally talk about all of this stuff. You look at some of the biggest supporters of these different protests and organizations, BLM, the LGBTQ stuff, a lot of it stems from feminism, Marxist bullshit.
This is a socialist intifada. And to give you guys tools at home to identify these things, because there's patterns. There's, you need to educate yourself to see when it's happening, and you need to learn their tactics. I'm obsessed with Marxist tactics, because whenever I see something on TV or whenever I see something that they're doing at the protests, like weapons, the way they take over things, the 3 books are a really good starting point. The first one is a classic. It's Roots for Radical by a known organizer, Saul Alinsky.
Bear in mind, that one was the one dedicated to Satan.
Yes.
In the opening chapters.
This was published in 1971, and this is one of the first book. Well, this is one of the first major books that describe tactics for insurrection and revolution.
Didn't Hillary Clinton write her dissertation on Rules for Radicals?
Yeah, there's a connection between.
This
the
is
two of them,
super
for sure.
mainstream. Like the second book is a little bit more. They don't quote it, but they've read it. This is the Anarchist Cookbook. This is very tactical. Root for Radicals has a little bit more of the bigger picture thing, and the Anarchist Cookbook literally will tell you how to make
napalm.
B words. Yeah. Make napalm. And then we have this other book that we'll highly recommend, because these tactics have been highly effective, especially in South America. This is called Molecular Revolution by Felix Guattari. The first book is pretty straightforward. Anyone can read it. The second book, the Anarchist Cookbook, is also very straightforward. If you're gonna read Felix Guattari so it doesn't rot your brain, I will do some reading before approaching the book. And the last thing that I don't know if I have the slide there, all these resources, they've been put together, they've been refined, and they are being used right now. I want everyone to go check this out. The website is live. It's called Beautiful Trouble. We had people like AOC, and you can look for compilations of this, talking about creating Beautiful Trouble. Beautiful Trouble is literally like a compilation and a guide of all these tactic books. This is not by mistake. This is not a coincidence. They don't organize. They have paid organizers. They have all these people that are trained Marxists. So I will give this a look and start identifying the tactics and the boys getting together and being fearless and holding the flag so it doesn't touch the floor. That's one way to resist this thing, because today is Israel-Palestine, tomorrow is going to be something else, and they're going to keep corroding this beautiful country, best country in the world. Like, I love America. I will take a bullet for this country. I wouldn't even flinch. So you're aware, do your reading, and resist.
Before we wrap and move on to the final topic, I want to go around the room. Do you guys believe that do you believe, A, that these protests will result in any type of good? Is there any good that will come from will there be any policy changes or anything that changes as a result of any of these protests that we're seeing for pro-Palestine? Because the only takeaway I'm seeing is people are becoming more pro-America, and we're seeing more of that. Eric Adams issuing the New York City Police Department to go down and pull down the Palestinian flag from Columbia and raising the American flag. The frat bros at UNC making sure that the American flag didn't hit the ground. Do you guys see any benefit, any positive for the people's argument of pro-Palestine? Do you think there's going to be any positive outcome for those protesters, Amy?
No.
Connor?
I can see an outcome where they successfully pressured Democratic politicians into changing policy that benefits them, but nothing good. You see the difference?
Humberto. This will elect Donald Trump. There's a generational divide between old school leftists like your Joe Biden and that type of people, that they still, on paper and on policy, they need to protect Israel at all costs because it's a big part of the U.S. foreign policy. But at the same time, they're losing the vote of Generation C that is in the colleges that are getting brainwashed. And the generation gap the outcome for the left is going to be terrible. The outcome for every freedom thinker is going to be, I think it's a net positive. But I don't know. I encourage everyone to not pick sides and think about America. That's my thing.
Finally, Columbia dropout, possibly a Fed, and now the director of studio operations at Valuetainment, Robert O'Rourke. Do you think the pro-Palestine protesters are going to have any benefits on policy as a whole?
Strategically speaking, this has nothing to do with Palestine or Israel. This is about the 2024 election. They're going to try and use this to start a riot continually and try and start a state of emergency. So we're going to have to, not go vote in person or something like that to steal the election. So my thing is, this is going to help anybody who wants to keep the current power regime in place. I
feel like it's doing the opposite after what you said about affecting the election in favor of Trump and what we're seeing among pro-American sentimentism in the United States. I almost feel like it's having the direct opposite effect of what they were hoping for.
The pendulum swinging back. Like, you look at what was going on in the 2020 elections, and it had the effect that people wanted it to have. It pushed people away from Trump, but it's doing the opposite now.
As stupid as the first video was of them asking for humanitarian aid when they're in school, this is very performative. The left performs things. So they wanted everyone around in the school to see what it feels like to be in Gaza. It's an act, it's like an act. And the same thing goes for the right. When you actually see these assholes pulling down the flag that is a half mast, and you see it with your own eyes, and you see the guys taking it down, if I pass by, I'd be like, F no. They're not taking it down. Doesn't matter if I'm going to the banks. Once you see it firsthand and you don't see it on TV, it's different.
It's all going to be fun and not fun and games, but it's all going to, it looks like you're winning right now, that it's helping. But I think the second a kid dies that's on the Palestinian side, on, a student, all bets are off.
They're never going to get their George Floyd moment. They can't recreate that. The public sentiment isn't there to rally around one guy. But what they will get is probably like 500 mini Floyds of, okay, there's not one cop kneeling on one guy, but a bunch of cops knocked a kid down a flight of stairs and he busted his head open. Or they dragged this girl away screaming and it dislocated her shoulder. They will combine these into their movement now.
Yep.
And that's what I think will be able to pressure politicians to maybe start listening to them, because they know what can happen if they don't.
All right. Well, all of this sounds frightening. So awesome. Great. Thanks, guys.
No problem.
Let's wrap up on the final topic. And this is something that we have to dance around delicately so the overlords of Z internets doesn't issue us any type of repercussions. Let's just say that. About 2 weeks ago, a very interesting lawsuit overseas about cookies, is what we're going to call it, came out. But before we get to that, let's start with Tubbies. Fatties. I'm one of them. Arguably, no offense, the majority of this panel, a little chubby. We could use some work around the edges. Sorry, Connor and Humberto, but you guys are
I normally wear
thin.
black for a reason,
You're
Rob.
representing the skinny group.
Yeah, so we have the skinnies and the tubbies here, and it's
But we're ashamed. That's the main thing.
yes, okay.
As long as you're ashamed and you hate being fat, it's all good.
But we're not alone, and I don't know if that's good or bad. According to the World Health Organization, at least 2.8 million people die each year due to being overweight or obese. In the United States, the estimated number of annual deaths from being fat, 280,000 to 400,000 people. That's a lot of people.
Solid amount.
That's like a lot of 9/11s. There was a thing going on a few years ago where they would compare the amount of 9/11s it would take to reach the death toll. That's a lot of 9/11s for obesity.
Yes.
It's actually the second leading cause of preventable death in the United States. You guys want to take a guess as to what's the first?
Heart disease?
No.
Guns?
The View.
Guns? No, not The View. Suicide from The View. So we're combining guesses. It's actually, and this is odd to me because I don't see that this much anymore, but smoking.
I was going to say that, but then I thought, no, people are over that now.
But no, because it's very odd. When I see somebody smoking these days, I'm like, that guy's hardcore. Because everybody vapes now. It's very rare that I drive by and I see a younger person standing outside in the rain smoking a stogie like we used to have to do at Parliament Lights.
Ooh.
Yeah.
I was a
Parliament
Newport guy.
guy?
Yeah.
You were a Newport guy.
Then I switched over to the lighter Marlboro Reds. Yeah.
So you went from stereotypical urban cigarette to redneck cigarette
Just
real
went for
quick.
it. I had both sides of the
What's a Camel guy?
I don't even think those guys exist anymore. They've been replaced with Virginia Slims
We successfully bred them out, but
All right, I'm a Camel guy.
as they say, the side effects of smoking are cancer and looking cool. So now you know they're hardcore if they're ripping a cigarette now.
The World Health Organization, back to obesity. There's actually an obesity epidemic. From the World Health Organization, they say that obesity is one of the most blatantly visible yet most neglected public health problems. They've actually coined a term for it. The global epidemic of overweight and obesity is called globesity.
Awesome.
Globesity because it's a global epidemic.
Not because you're the size and shape of a globe. No,
maybe that's why they did it.
That seems offensive.
Now
Fatphobic.
imagine a world where we have this awful epidemic where people are dying from it, and again, 300 to 400,000 people dying from being obese. Now imagine that in order to combat this obesity epidemic that we have, there is a rush to combat globesity. And a company, we'll call them Keebler, creates a sugar-free cookie that gets rushed through the taste testing trials and goes immediately on the market as a problem or as a solvent to the problem of tubbies. At first, it's recommended that everybody eats these sugar-free cookies. Hey, Robert O'Rourke, you're not chubby, but guess what? You should eat these cookies, too. It's going to help the people who are overweight feel less like they should be embarrassed to eat these sugar-free cookies. Connor, we're eating the sugar-free cookies. Humberto, we're eating the sugar-free cookies because we're overweight and we need to. But skinny people, it's recommended that you guys eat these sugar-free cookies.
Do you remember when they said if you ate the sugar-free cookie, they'd give you free burgers and pizza and hot dogs and donuts and everything to reward you for getting the sugar-free cookie.
Get a free cheeseburger.
So
there's a public health crisis. People are dying. Oh, but eat this burger that's grilled and fat.
So this is like a Gaze for Gaza type of situation.
Yes.
Correct. Yes. It's so bad. The CDC, FDA, and the World Health Organization all agree that everybody should eat the cookies, even if you're not fat. The problem is not everybody eats the cookies. People are skeptical of the cookies. Hey, well, how did they do in the taste testing trials? Oh, there weren't taste testing trials? Well, I don't know if I want to eat the sugar-free cookies. It becomes a problem, right? Because now we're not able to combat the obesity epidemic because not enough people are eating the sugar-free cookies.
Rob, you're killing people by not eating the sugar-free cookies.
Do you not care about Nana? And eat the sugar-free cookies.
To all you uncookied people, there is a winter of destruction and death coming your way.
A dark winter.
You need to stay away from Thanksgiving and Christmas until you eat your cookies.
Well, so here's what happens. Not enough people eat the cookies, so the narrative overnight changes from you should eat the cookies to now you must eat the cookies. cookies. In fact, if you don't eat the cookies, you're not going to be allowed to go to the gym. In order to go to the gym, you're going to need a cookie passport. So you can show that I have had my daily consumption of sugar-free cookies. I'm allowed to be in this establishment. But it goes further than that. People start losing their jobs. It becomes a mandate that you must eat these cookies. If you don't eat these cookies, then you're no longer, for whatever reason it is, you're going to be banned from public events. You're going to now lose your job, and you're also going to lose your health benefits because you're not eating cookies during the obesity epidemic. And it becomes one of the leading reasons why people leave their jobs. In fact, here's a November 5th, 2021 article. Again, this is all just hypothetical, but this is a November 5th hypothetical article from ABC7 in which they say cookie refusal, the 10th highest reason for job cuts in 2021. And then there's a December hypothetical 2021 New York Times article entitled, "See where 12 million U.S. employees are affected by government cookie mandates," where at least 49,000 Americans had resigned from their jobs because of cookie mandates and their protests to it. And then let's fast forward 4 years later. And it turns out that Keebler admits that its sugar-free cookies could cause a rare but deadly blood clotting condition, potentially exposing the UK snacking giant to tens of millions, if not billions, in lawsuits brought on by loved ones of those who have been injured or killed as a result of the forced cookie mandate. Lawyers representing dozens of class action claimants say that some of their clients' cases could be worth as much as $25 million in damages, calling Big Cookie's product a defective product. Keebler then contests the claims, acknowledging in a February legal document that its cookies can, in very rare cases, cause a condition called thrombosis with thrombocytopenia, a syndrome also known as TTS. So far in these cookie-related lawsuits, 51 cases have been filed, estimated to be worth $125 million in London's High Court, due to a bargain that Keebler struck with the UK government at the height of the obesity epidemic. This was a deal that was struck to indemnify the snack maker against potential lawsuits. They actually say that instead of Keebler being on the hook for any side effects of the cookies, it may actually be the taxpayers who are going to be on the hook for payouts resulting from the claims.
So,
wow.
Don't
4 years removed. What are your thoughts? Do you believe that there should be any type of repercussions, or should there be lawsuits given or paid favorably to people who are injured by Big Cookie?
Absolutely.
First of all, I haven't seen such great dancing since Footloose.
Thank you.
Incredible.
It's incredible.
Just like in the town in Footloose, they don't like it when we dance. But we dance anyway.
Yeah, okay. So what are you going to be, the John Lithgow of the podcast? That's what YouTube is.
Jesus, who's Patrick Swayze?
I think it's great that there's a lot of people who are about to be vindicated, and it's also going to vindicate a lot of people who've been warning about this. So there is an adverse effects registry tab for cookies online that you can read about. Yep. Whether you're feeling a little bit sleepy, whether something serious happens, whenever somebody reports something after eating the cookie, it automatically gets put on this website. But there isn't a whole lot of regulation behind it, and for a lot of people, they don't even see it as a credible source whatsoever. So when I reference that, when I've been in cookie debates with people, they're like, no, that's not credible. That's not real. So I think that this is an opportunity for people who were affected by the cookie to get vindicated. And then the people who've been speaking out about this, they'll be able to reference that as well.
Jokes aside, and this is serious, as a muffin supremacist, okay? Because that's the superior snack with your coffee. I don't think they will ever go far enough with vindication at all. They will never go far enough, because I not only want everyone to know the side effects of having cookies, I want them to tell the world that this was fortune cookies.
Dark facts.
They are fortune cookies.
Very good point.
You got Rob good on that one.
And that's all I want to say. And we need to go to war with fortune cookie makers, because this was a sweet attack on our freedoms. Like, this is really...
Okay, so to go down that rabbit hole of it being a deliberate cookie sabotage, right? Mm-hmm. How many times do things have to be shown that we're... and I hate to use the term, but it's conspiratorial when you talk about it, right? We talk about, hey, there must be paid protesters in those. Why would there be people throwing bricks through storefront windows during Black Lives Matter? Now you flash forward to 8 years later, and it's, hey, there's admittance that there's paid agitators in crowds. You look at all of the activity of the World Economic Forum, George Soros, and you go, hey, that stuff's suspicious, and people have been calling it suspicious for a decade now. And all of a sudden, we come to today where it's, yes, George Soros is actually paying for those protesters to go and infiltrate. He's also paid for certain members of Congress. He's lobbied Congress and the Senate. So all of these things were taboo topics to talk about, but then the more that we talked about them, the more it turns out that there is some truth behind these taboo topics. So that being one of them, well, whoever made these fortune cookies that made a lot of people fat, will those people ever be held accountable, or do they continue to just say, no, this was a totally separate thing, that it wasn't baked that way, it actually was created that way somewhere else?
Rob, I mean, what... Like a big cookie fan, you know, that was, you know, putting his hand in the wrong cookie jar. Mm-hmm. Harvey Weinstein is free to do whatever. So we can hold people accountable, do the whole thing, but I don't think we have the military power to actually back up those claims. We're spread thin, because this cookie war, it could be like a world war. You know, like if we actually were able to hold them accountable to the level that we need to look. I'm going to tell you something really sad about the whole cookie thing. My grandfather, you know, one of my biggest inspirations and whatever, he worked until he was 97. Okay, when the whole cookie debacle started, he was healthy as a horse. He would wake up every morning, go to his office, you know, do his lawyer stuff, you know, and he worked until 97. Cookie crisis hit when he was 97, and they killed my grandfather without even serving him cookies, you know? So I'm extremely bitter. Like, and I'm gonna be bitter about them taking away my grandfather, where I couldn't even go to the funeral.
How many millions of more Americans feel the exact same way that you do, that lost somebody during that obesity epidemic, and they want somebody to be held accountable, and yet nobody is holding the fortune cookie maker accountable?
And think about even more than that.
Sorry for your loss, Humberto.
The degree to which American bakers were involved in the fortune cookie operation before that even the obesity epidemic even got to us.
Correct. There was a patent for it that you could actually read about publicly towards the end of 2019, correct?
Yeah. American government bakers, American business bakers, they were all involved in what was going on over where they make the fortune cookies. And no one's ever been held to account for that. So even as we get the word out there about the problems with the cookies, because in every other case, you're supposed to know what goes into the cookie before you take the cookie. But when was the last time you heard about a cookie company being able to hide the recipe and the results of the kitchen trials for 75 years after you're supposed to get it? The thing to do now is you go to the tree where the Keebler elves make their cookies.
I'm aware where that is.
Yeah. You chop down the tree, you drag the elves out and say, you will be held accountable for this. But nobody likes to do that because it makes us feel icky, because everybody loves elves. They're here to help us. Look at all the good things.
I know one orange guy who does not love elves.
They've done all these things in the past.
And he will drag all of them out from that tree one by one by himself.
But you have to remember, orange guy was the one who greenlit the development of the sugar-free cookie in the first place.
I don't know if the orange guy knew what he was greenlighting at that
time. It's the same thing that you said. That 10 minutes beforehand, they told him, you know, just give the cookies to the people. But we were like, Viva Frey was here a few days ago, and we're talking about baked goods in general.
Yep.
And you know, it caught my attention that Monday of last week or this week, I don't remember. Anyways, there was articles posted about, you know, cookie, you know, related, you know, mishaps.
Yes.
it was released because, I read the press in different languages. I saw an article in Spanish in 2 or 3 publications, one from Spain, one from Argentina, one from Chile. I read the article in French as well in a Canadian publication. And
just so you know, I did not know that you've read all of these articles in different languages.
You gotta,
when you start with, that I like to read articles in different languages. I know that you're fluent in French as well.
I can read, but I will never speak it because I hate the French. I'm sorry if you're French. You're the worst.
I love you.
And
I thought Norwegians were the worst. I thought Norwegians were the worst. Why do you always change your mind?
Well, what they're doing to my boys in Haiti and my boy Barbecue and how they've been treating them lately. Let them do their thing.
But like you were saying,
as I was saying, the press release, because it was a press release, like they cover us an article.
Yeah.
And since I've been, in the mix of like running a publication, I know when things are paid. I know when they give it to you. And when you see an article in Quebec and you see an article in France and you see an article in Chile and you see an article here in the States at the same time about, the bad things that happens when you dip into the cookie jar, I think things might be hitting the fan on the inside, because if they're willing to show that little bit of thing, something's going to happen soon. That's my best guess.
Yeah.
Okay.
This is and I won't speak too much on this because the last time I did, I got this channel a strike. So I'm going to be very, very careful with what I'm saying right now.
Talk this week.
I got to stick with the cookie talk, and you guys are way too quick with the metaphors. I don't know if I can keep this up, but I'll say this: when they say thrombosis, what they're saying is brain clot that stops your brain from functioning properly. This isn't like a rare thing and it's some weird Latin word that we don't know what it is. This is like your brain dying. Okay. Wow. So this is not a small thing. I too lost mentors. I lost grandparents. I lost stuff during this time, and you cannot ever take the fire away from me that would hang every single one of those executives that thought this was a good idea.
Executives being cookie executives from
Keebler. Yeah, those Keebler folks, they would never have a chance if I had any say in any of it. So go ahead.
Maybe that's what's happening to those Colombia pro-Palestine protesters. They have thrombosis, and their brains have just rotted away.
Getting eaten alive.
That one black and white cookie guy from New York who made everybody take the sugar-free cookie. You're at the top of the list.
All right. Well, that's. I think that's it for us today.
That's it.
Amy, Connor, Humberto, and Robert O'Rourke, thank you very much for joining us. Make sure that you download the Minect app. I'm sure that if is Malik back there? I don't know if we can show it, but if not, go to your app store. It's on Google Play. It's on iTunes. Download the Minect app today. Compete in the Minect League Championships. You can check out the Minect leaderboard right there. It's Minect.com/leaderboard. There's several different divisions: lightweight, middleweight, and for those of us who need the sugar-free cookies, the heavyweight. Oh no, there's a super heavyweight. Those are the guys that need the sugar-free cookies. And then you can also be a new user and an existing user. Go download Minect today. Join Minect and participate for your chance to win a night of dinner and cigars with Patrick Bet-David and the home team, part of the Minect League Championships. And if you have not done so already, make sure you like and subscribe right here, right below. There it is. Thank you, Malik. You're the man. Give us the thumbs up. Subscribe. That way you get notified for future episodes of The Unusual Suspects. For today's cast, my name is Rob Gargiulo, and thank you so much for joining us. Vinny is back on Wednesday, so make sure you tune back in Wednesday, 6 p.m. right here on The Unusual Suspects channel. Have a good day. See you soon. Take care. Bye-bye.
I love you, chat.